ROI Hunters. ROI Hunters. O podcast de marketing do InfoMoney. Marketing do InfoMoney.
Bom, sejam muito bem-vindos a mais um ROI Hunters. Porém, se você está ouvindo esse episódio no Spotify, saiba que ele será em inglês. Lembra quando seu pai, sua mãe, alguém da sua família, a pessoa que te criou, falava que você tinha que saber inglês? É por isso aqui. Porque hoje o episódio é em inglês, então se você não fala inglês e precisa de legendas, vai no YouTube. O YouTube tá lá, legendadinho, bonitinho. E a partir de agora, nós vamos mudar pro inglês. E boa sorte pra você que manja ou não no inglês. É isso, João.
Quem criticar o nosso inglês vai ser banido do podcast. Então...
crítica lá é bom, eu gosto de crítica.
Eu não.
Yeah, ok.
No episódio de hoje, nossos hosts João e Guilherme recebem Aeron, autor do livro Receita Previsível e foi diretor da Salesforce. Em uma época que o modelo de vendas era autocentrado, Aeron percebeu que o cliente precisava ser ouvido e reformulou a estrutura do seu time de vendas, que revolucionou o mercado de vendas no mundo todo. Quer formar um time imbatível de vendas? Escute agora no ROI Hunters.
So, let's switch to English right now. The people that follow us, they are with the expectations set. So I think that our first question can be, when you wrote Predictable Revenue, it was like 2011 that it was published, right? Yep. So would you rewrite anything as of today? Like something that you see, it's these things like right now, it's really different. So it would be better to be rewritten.
Yeah. There's a couple of things I would do differently. So I'll start with, techniques and tactics are always changing. And in the original Predictable Revenue, I did put in some specific techniques around like referral emails and some kind of numbers on like response rates and kind of like specific funnel metrics.
Okay.
And it's more than 10 years later. And so a lot of those techniques sometimes still work, but the metrics are off because there's so much more variety in techniques and like what works for some people. And there's a lot more, it's less consistent in terms of like benchmarks. They're not as useful. So I would add more of the techniques that people use today, because now it's like LinkedIn and even WhatsApp and there's more channels. People still cold call and there's more variety of ways. And the other thing I would do, there's a whole section of predictable revenue that was missing. And after a bunch of years, I saw companies struggle with not just outbound, but growing. And I would say that we did the sequel to predictable revenue was called here in Portuguese, Impulsionando.
Mm-hmm.
In
hypergrowth.
Yeah. And in English, because it's from impossible to inevitable. So they changed the title in Brazil in Portuguese to Impulsionando.
Mm-hmm.
So the first section of that book it's called Nailing a Niche. Nail a niche.
Okay.
That was like a whole section that was kind of, I'd say, missing from predictable revenue, which is, all right, how do you like really very specific understanding and techniques, like find the best market, the right customers who need you, understand their thinking and like create messaging for them. So those would be the two main things that I would change in the original. They did update it here. The second edition, it's orange with the unicorn in front, and they made it a lot prettier. So that'd be a third change. Like it's better designed, and they added a workbook. Okay, that's a fourth change. So those are 4 changes, and 3 of them already been done in just in the second edition in the Impulsionando.
Okay. So you said that some techniques from like new social media, WhatsApp, those you probably will change that. Do you believe that those new channels and the new ways people are communicating and making decisions, they change something more fundamental about how we do sales, or do you believe that fundamentally it's still the same?
No, fundamentally it's still the same. It's just there's an evolution of which principles do you apply when? The bigger change that's been going on for years and will continue to go on for years is the ever increasing amount of kind of stuff, content, apps, busyness, messages, channels, right? It used to be you had texting, and it was texting in Facebook, and then it was texting Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp. So it's just like there's more. This isn't just for business. This is just people. So there's always going to be more channels, more messages, more stuff to kind of juggle, more digital work. And so also like our minds, our attention is getting sliced a little more thinly. And so whether you're doing outbound, whether you're doing marketing, whether you're actually trying to communicate with someone on your team, everyone's a little more distracted and their attention spans are a little shorter. So you're targeting what you're doing, and the messaging has to be that much more specific and insightful to kind of break through the noise of not just competitors, but all the other things competing for people's attention. So that's just a fundamental change that's going to continue to go on. And everyone will just have to continue adapting towards which channels work best, which ones aren't working. How do I communicate per channel? And anything that works today may or may not work tomorrow.
It seems like everyone nowadays are getting some ADHD symptoms, like missing attention, and it's really hard to focus right now.
Do you believe that this change on behavior makes like the conversion rates from each step of a sales funnel worse? Like the average sales funnel today is worse than it was like 10 years ago because of people with less capacity of focus or more distractions?
No, it depends, right? So some sales funnels work better. In some ways, some sales funnels work better. Some are worse. It all depends on kind of like the product you have or whatever you're offering. Is it needed by someone, right? And how effective is the product? How effective is your understanding of the right customer? How effective is your sales or marketing funnel? But it is likely that, let's say that in the past, if you had something that worked, say a sales funnel, marketing funnel that's working, maybe it continues to work with small changes for 3 years. I'm just picking a number. Today, maybe it'll work for 9 months before, like, the rate of entropy is increasing. Like, the more the world is connected and the more change happens and the more kind of juggling, kind of believe that change will continue to happen faster. And we can't, it's harder where we feel like, we figured something out, we can kind of relax, and that's less true. We have to rely more on our creativity and our intuition and our adaptability to continue to evolve.
So it's not like you will necessarily have a worse conversion, but will be harder to keep a high conversion rate.
Could be. Yeah, I think that it's going to be harder. Whatever's working today, you have to continue to pay attention to it to not only keep it working, but try to improve it.
I think that we are, as marketers, we are kind of used to have to iterate a lot of our processes. So I think that maybe this kind of mentality, it can help us on the sales process to keep iterating the process so we can keep higher conversions. I think that's the main issue right now, because things change a little faster. So at the same time, we're going to be needing to tweak our process in the meantime a little faster as well.
Yeah, I think it's just being careful not to take things for granted just because they've been working in the past. And a lot of, think about a lot of, as people get older, they tend to be more usually set in their ways. Mm-hmm. And in Brazil, there's, like other countries, lots of people who are very experienced who, it's harder for them to change and adapt because they've used to things working for so long. And they don't realize that they kind of say, if it worked for the last 20 years, why wouldn't it work next year? And sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't. Yeah,
so we have to keep up to date. But talking a little bit more about the tools that João brought in earlier. So do you think that automating, we have a lot of tools that can help us automate the process right now?
Way too many. I'm sure the marketing people listening, whether the B2C, B2B, are probably like, my head is going to explode with all the tools that I'm supposed to not only use that I already have, use together, but also evaluate other ones, right? It's just so many, and there's only going to be more next year and more the year after.
Yeah, we kind of have to juggle a little bit, like the level of the personalization that we can offer to our customers. And at the same time, a lot of our customers, a lot of our clients here in Brazil, mainly B2B customers, they are really inclined to try to use these tools to reduce their team. I'm not going to have a big sales team right now. I have a lot of tools that can automate the process, but how can we try to measure the correct or something close to the correct balance of automation in this kind of world that we are right now, and how much of it needs to be one-on-one, with a person?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, every business be some. Oh, here comes the dance club. Right?
Yeah, so you're in the dance club right now.
Yeah. there's always going to be some sort of teeter-totter or balance around how much automation versus how much human help. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you want more automation, right? For more transactional situations. Sometimes you want more human touch, more human help. Like whether you have special clients or whether you have certain situations where you really need like a human to be involved for that intuition. Let's get louder. I'm ready. I'm going to stand up and answer. There we go.
It's not hard.
So I think not only in a business, but also kind of by business segment, you have to kind of think, for that type of customer we're serving, what's the right balance? You know, if we're serving very complex, big customers, right? We need more like senior people and maybe junior people to support them. But it's for lots of little businesses online, maybe it's all automated. So that's the challenge where it's trying to fit what's that type of customer, like what are we doing? And not trying to use a copy paste approach. It's not like a cookbook, but thinking, what's the best way to mix technology and human touch to have the best result that also fits kind of the way our business works, right? Because we can't afford to put all human all the time. And sometimes humans make mistakes. So sometimes automation helps reduce that.
Yeah, I really think that the way that we try to teach our clients here in Brazil is that, yes, automating things is like really useful and it can be helpful and can reduce some costs every once in a while. But at the same time, automating things almost always comes with a downside on the conversion rate, right? So
there's a cost to it.
Yeah, it's not like just going to automate things and you can like fire your sales team and that's it. You know?
And there is a problem even before you speak about automation. It's like, what are you going to automate? Like, do you know how this thing should be doing before you automate it? Like I see a lot of new teams trying to start with a lot of automations without they even know what works and what doesn't work. Yep. And that is how, do you believe that there's like a time frame or a clear signal that a given process is mature enough for you to start thinking about how to automate it?
Well, I mean, to me, I think, again, let's take an example around, it's like, okay, I don't know, cold emails. I'm just picking something. Should we kind of create templates and automate sending them? I mean, no, like so you can send a few dozen or a few hundred and think, are they even working? Like start with small batches to see what works before you try to send lots. I'm sure you can apply that to marketing, to kind of anything like a product. Why would you start to manufacture like thousands of units of your product before you know that, it works and customers want it? So don't be afraid. Like, and there's a camp of person, and maybe engineers tend to be this way, which is we want to start out with automating everything, or entrepreneurs who want to like speed it up. And sometimes the best way to move fast is to start by moving slow, like hand-picked small batches to really find out what works. And AI can be great. I haven't used it myself, but I think what's missing is that human intuition to be able to come up with new ideas that can't be predicted from past performance. So again, I think as AI becomes more popular, we're going to continue to have this ongoing mix of how much human touch on automation or how much human ingenuity on versus AI do we mix that's right for our business in terms of what delivers a good product experience, but also kind of fits our financial operational model. How much money we're going to spend. Yeah. And can we hire enough good people? That's another problem these days, right?
And one of our questions.
Yes, we're going to get there. But I think that AI, just like metaverse or something like that, just like AI is, of course, much more developed right now than metaverse, for example. But at the same time, people think that it's the only way, or I have to go and use this way and automate things. And the example that I can just try to explain.
It's like people saying I have to be vegetarian because that's like the way to go.
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
There are a few things that are the correct way and the only way in the world. I really think that there are a lot of options so you can choose and try to work it out better in your business. So one example that I can try to explain here is like a lot of our customers, not talking about like B2B clients or something like that. Maybe they need to sell a product on the internet And the first way they think to sell it is like through e-commerce, for example. But not necessarily is going to be the best way. What about, in Brazil, WhatsApp is like huge. So why not try to sell it on the internet through WhatsApp with a person answering the messages? And people know, I need to have a salesman or something like that. And maybe it's the insight here is trying small first and starting with WhatsApp to see if it really sells, and then you are going to automate and create an e-commerce or something like that. I think that's the main way to go.
Sorry, I'm going to keep making funny gestures as people walk past and they're taking pictures of us.
No problem.
No, I think it's saying, look, we want things to grow. We want things to be automated and scalable. We want things to go fast, but sometimes it makes sense to start slow, like slow down first to speed up later.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't help to automate something or scale it if it's not working in the first place. Like people will say, I'm sending 1,000 emails a month. I'm only getting a tiny response rate. I got to send more emails. How does that make sense? Let's do more. And it used to be, I'm making calls and I'm not getting through to people. So I got to make more calls. How does that make sense? We're getting a really, so start small. And I think what happens is sometimes getting something that works and the result we want takes way longer than we want it to, or that we think it should take. Like, I've been working at it for 3 months already. Like, it should be working. Well, who says who? You have no idea how long it's going to take to get to the point where it's clicking. It might take you 6 months. It might take you a year. You don't know.
It never worked.
It could be. Yeah, you find something like, or maybe someone decide, you know what, wrong way, I got different. So then we get into these weird places of having expectations, or mentally like, oh, it should only take 3 months, or take someone else in my team. Like, why is it taking them so long? Like, but why don't you try it? You think you can do it faster? Come on, you give it a shot. So it's really hard, I think, for us to kind of look at a problem and say, look, okay, sometimes there's problems that we don't know the answer. Like, okay, we're going to solve it, but we don't know how long it's going to take. And but the thing is, there's enough stories in business where, the leader says, we need you to send a rocket to the moon in 3 months, and people do it somehow. And that happens sometimes, but a lot of times it doesn't. Usually it probably doesn't, right? So, but the stories of people doing it get into the news. And the stories of people where it doesn't work don't. So, but then we always compare ourselves to, a leader set a big goal and we didn't hit it and we failed. Well, that happens all the time. All the time. So what's the problem?
Do you believe that this is worse in sales? Like, I have this impression that people have a mental image of how sales works, like quite similar with how tech works, and they say, sales should do this, but the person saying,
how kids should work.
And people who have never made one sales call, they come to the sales team and say, hey, you're doing the wrong things. You should be doing. Do you believe that this is more common in sales than in other teams?
Yeah, well, I think that if that happens, and the sales team should send someone to the marketing team and be like, hey, you're doing marketing all wrong. Like, they don't know. I think I really wish more companies would take kind of sales and marketing managers and leaders and switch them for 3 months so they could be in each other's shoes. Like, that's really the best way to create more teamwork and understanding, is when those teams, they just have to have more communication, learn more about each other. Like, if you only do sales and you're in your vacuum and you're getting bad leads and you're just complaining about marketing, that's not helping. Like, there's so many solvable ways to go and solve that problem.
Yeah, right? The fight between sales and marketing is like something that always existed. And at V4, we are trying to solve that by literally doing that, not just sweeting.
It's 90% solvable. Like in the Hippo Crescimento book, like there's 3 or 4, there's a whole section on that. Like having the junior SDRs for B2B, right? Mm-hmm. Junior SDRs or LDRs, like salespeople sit between like pre-filtered leads for sales. That helps. Having marketing be on metrics that are related to sales helps. Having a single revenue leader. Sometimes it's a CEO, sometimes not. That can help. Like, it's just more communication and talking. That's not unsolvable. It's just people don't try new ideas, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Lack of knowledge.
Yeah, I really think that people just accept it as it is in Brazil. And
inertia, maybe.
Yeah.
CEOs are just used to it. They're like,
It's normal. So
Yeah,
every company is like that, and
Yeah.
just easy to think like that. But at V4, what we did, we have a VP of marketing and sales. So he's the one that is looking to how can we generate leads, for example, and at the same time he's taking care a little bit. Of course, he has his leaders underneath his wing, but he needs to spend the money on the right way, and at the same time get the most revenue he can possibly get through this money.
And sometimes that can work. I think it can. Then it comes down to the person you've got. Can they kind of sometimes it doesn't work because I think in the States usually you have like a VP of sales, and then they add, okay, now you do marketing too, and they don't really know enough about marketing. They haven't been in the marketing trenches, the job to really understand it. And so it's kind of too much of a bias to sales.
Okay,
it could be the reverse, right? A VP of marketing who adds sales, but sometimes it works really well. Depends on the person you've got.
But what would be the other way around?
Well, I think usually it's better to have like that one person ahead of revenue, like chief revenue officer, VP of revenue. I think it's just knowing, can you get the best person? And then even then doing the best. This is for the CEO to say, hey, all right, do they have kind of a balanced view of all the functions, or at least the right people under them, right? If you have a great kind of sales director and marketing director and customer success director, all reporting up to that VP of sales and marketing, that can make all the difference. It's all about the leadership and the team and the people they've got together. And again, if the leader is open-minded, right, and a lot aren't, I think there's lots of VPs of sales who are like, marketing, what a waste of money. And vice versa, like lots of VPs of marketing, like VP sales, like a bunch of boneheads, right? So that kind of attitude is not going to help. That doesn't help. So, hey, look, we have something. We can learn something from anyone here. I have a lot to learn from marketing or vice versa. Let's work together. Let's try something new, and kind of not letting the ego or the pride get in the way.
Got it. So just to see if I really got it, it would be
test
better.
Time. That's right. Here's
Yeah,
a quiz.
test time, like a quiz time. So instead of having the VP of marketing and sales that we have at before, for example, that can be biased, we should have like a CRO, something like that, chief revenue officer, something like that. And underneath him, we are going to have like two persons, like two leaders.
Maybe two or three, because depending on the business, so you'd have sales, if there's salespeople, marketing, it could be partnerships. Right? Sometimes they're related to revenue, sometimes not.
Okay.
Or like account management, customer success.
Yeah, ABM, something.
Yeah. So this kind of like, it's like, what are the main revenue functions that are related that should be coordinated this way? And that can vary business to business. So I wouldn't say that is like the best way to do it. I'd say that's a great option because there's no best way. But for businesses that sometimes having a separate sales of VP of sales and marketing isn't working the way it should, and they should look at this. All right. Again, it all comes down to the people you've got and the business you've got. It's like, wow, should I be vegetarian? Because that's the best, right? Well, no, not for everybody. Like, some people need to eat meat. Like, you need to know your own business, know your own team, know your own body, and test it to see what works best for you, versus just blindly copying what other people do.
Yeah.
So, speaking about teams, like a huge tendency that we've seen is like remote teams. And what do you think about remote for sales? It's working? You have any kind of tips?
First, I don't know. I mean, yes, for sure it's working. I can't say how well it's working. For some companies, they love it and it's working better than ever. In other companies, they struggle and they kind of bring people back to headquarters. So it's kind of the same vein of there's so many ways to do it now, right? In the past, there used to be, you could be a male or a female, right? And that was very simple. Sometimes there was people who fit outside, but generally today you could be a lot of things. Like, how do you know what you are if you don't feel like you fit into that box? So there's like all remote and there's all in the office. Sometimes those work great, but if you don't fit into those boxes, how do you figure out? Well, you kind of have to try and see what works for you. So again, depending on the market, on the people, the culture, for sure. Remote sales for some companies has worked amazingly well, and for others, it's been a real struggle. I do feel like the culture is a lot more important at that point, because when you have people who are not in the office together, Like when you're meeting people together in person, there's a lot of team building and relationship building that just happens because you're there. So you kind of trust each other more, you know each other more. And when you're remote, you don't have that. And so there's a much bigger burden on the company and the leaders to help replace that with other ways for people to meet each other, trust each other, get to know each other, and build those relationships inside the company.
Yeah, at V4, talking about remote teams, I think that our sales team is like the most
person.
Yeah, no, it's the biggest team, but at the same time, they are the most avid users of our office. So I don't know if it's like our culture or it's the salesman culture, you know?
Salespeople in general tend to be more, they want to be around other people.
Yeah.
I get that because that'd be my way. Like it'd be kind of lonely if you're just at your computer, like trying to read, you know. So
yeah.
In general, that is, I hear this from so many companies. Salespeople generally like to be in the office with other people more, and engineers don't. You know?
Yeah, it's kind of the clear way.
It's kind of like that.
That's like understandable, I guess.
Yeah.
For some sales leader who is dealing with a remote team, do you have any kind of specific tip or anything that you believe specifically
let your hair down a bit?
You
know, in terms of you gotta relax and not be too professional, like too stiff, too impersonal. It's like you need to start to create more personal relationships across screens. And if you're kind of like a boring business person, it's harder to do. I mean, people will stay for the job, but you'll get a much better culture and team. Okay, so yeah, tips for leaders of a remote team. I'm saying that, you know, a lot of, especially like the tradition of business culture is to be kind of like in a suit and basically impersonal. Don't talk about your personal life. I would say be kind of boring. Honestly, be a leader.
Yeah, I think we're going to move on with another question right now. So, just I think it's talking about the new generation of salespeople. So it's
workers in general, not just
we are focusing here on the salespeople, but there is the new generation, and the question is, do you think they are like software salesmen, software salespeople?
You know, do I think the newer salespeople are softer? I mean, I think naturally when people are entering the sales job, most people are going to be on the softer side because they're not used to the types of what's the term? Like the types of like effective sales conversations, like how to ask for budget or something. So there's a certain set of skills that most people can learn. But they don't start off naturally. I don't believe, like, there's lots of people say that younger generations just in general are softer. Like, they haven't had to deal with hardship, and I don't buy that. It's different. But I do feel like anyone can learn, and if it's effective, people will learn it. So whether they start as softer or not, I don't think once people are experienced that they are. I think that's just an impression from people who are newer to the job. And I think that's always been more the case.
Yeah, that's quite different from most people think about the new generation.
Yeah, but they're always like, this new generation. Yeah, I think that's more of a curmudgeon. So curmudgeon be kind of like a cranky person. It's just fun to make fun of the younger generation. And that'll happen in the next generation too, right? It's always nice.
When you think about it, like our fathers believe that we are softer, our fathers believe that we are softer than them, and we believe that the next generation is softer than us.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's softer. I do think that we're more emotional. And each generation's becoming more emotional, which actually is a good thing. Really, it's a good thing. And then through that, there's this new set of kind of like personal boundaries, work boundaries that people have to learn on their own. What we're not doing is being handed a set of predetermined, in the past, like, here's like the set of social rules that you need to follow rigidly, and it's kind of more open. Society's becoming more open-ended. Like, what gender are you? It's like, so there is a lot more openness. There is and should be more emotion and feeling, and that is reflected by, I would say, people in the past. It's different. It's kind of scary that, you can't. He's like, well, it's like, if you grew up and you struggle for food, it's easy to kind of judge people who don't have to the same way. So I think most of it, there's some truth in it, but I think in general, it's great progress that people should be more emotional, especially men, have more feelings expressed and kind of learn what their own boundaries are where do they want to have hard lines in their own lives that may be their versions, not just what society or older people think they need to have.
Yeah, but on this point, like, do you believe that there are less people who want to work really hard than before? Like, I have this impression that maybe a few years ago, a lot of people would want, I want to work like 14, 16 hours a day and get rich. And today, like, there's more to I want like 8 hours of work per day and have a nice life.
4-day work week.
Yeah. What's wrong with that?
But my point is different. It's like, do you believe that there are more from this new generation who wants that than before?
Yeah.
And how to do that with...
first is, I think if people believe that, the amount of work you do equates to the amount of money you make, that's not true. First, right? Sometimes it is, but often it's not. Depends on what you do. It's not true for me. It's never been true for me. As far as, when I was a lot younger, there were times it was like I had a painting business, and when I went and knocked on doors, I made more money, but then I could have hired someone to do that and I wouldn't have to do it. So it's like, I think that thinking, the harder you work, you need to work hard. You need to work hard to be successful is weak thinking. Right? It's very rigid thinking. Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't. Sometimes working hard is the worst thing you can do. Right? If you're in a creative field where you need to have ideas and energy and enthusiasm, working hard is like the worst thing you can do. It's stupid.
I think it's the difference between working hard and working smart.
Yeah, I would say it's almost like trying to be in touch with what kind of work should you do when. Like for me, there's times I had to work in a very focused manner for hours on end. Right? I've had whether it's different jobs. Was it hard work? I worked hard. Like I did actually investment banking for 2 years where I worked 80 to 100 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was like the same stuff. It got to be boring, just more of the same stuff. I wasn't learning much after that. So if I continued that, I would have made a really good salary, but it would not have set me on the path of creating my own destiny, my own way to make money. So I do think that it's not the problem of lack of a desire to work hard. It's kind of people don't always know what they want to do because there's so many things they can do. And there's not an appreciation. People don't understand the level of challenge it takes to get to, let's just say wealth, right? Because there's many kinds of success, but to generate wealth, people underestimate what that takes because they see all the stories on social media. I just have to work hard for a year. Well, maybe not. I just need to do this. Like, it might take you a year, it might take you 10 years. So I think there's these wrong expectations people have. And so after 6 months or a year, they kind of quit at something, they do something else, and then restart the clock. So that it's not so much a lack of desire to work hard. I think it's mostly if you haven't been successful, you just don't know what it takes. And even if you have been successful, and I still often don't know what it takes, even for me, for my next thing, or for my kids. Like, I don't know. Everyone has to find their own way. So there's a lot of, I call it fortune cookie advice that gets given out, right?
Yeah.
It's like this, all just stuff people hear about it and just repeat it and it doesn't mean anything. Like, you're not working hard enough. Like, that's not true.
It's not necessarily replicable. Yeah.
It's not necessarily repeatable.
Also, yeah.
Like I have a teenager, like I have a 19-year-old who's just really good at music. I do believe she will be successful in making, in music. Mm-hmm. And she's like, if she wants to have it happen next year, I'm like, you don't know that. It could take you 10 years. It might happen. Like you have no idea how long it's going to take or what's involved. You have a 17-year-old who's kind of failing at school. And a lot, people are like, what's he going to do? I'm like, but he has this kind of weird, like ninja trick where he just comes up with these random ideas out of nowhere. And it's someday, I really believe that he'll kind of go from zero to hero for just some, like almost like a roll of the dice somehow. Like he just, I don't know, does it. He just has these kind of pulls things out of appears. You can't explain it. So there's a lot of ways people work. And if you're really looking to create a breakthrough in your career or success, sometimes you can do that by just working diligently. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can do it by kind of making it like Tai Chiing it with magic. It just depends on who you are and your style. It's like, how can you find your style to align with kind of your, I don't always have the words like the flow. Like for me, it's almost this flow I try to feel into or this like intuition where I feel like I'm aligned with my destiny in a way. Sometimes that's just not working. Like right now, I really don't work much. I'm kind of re-energizing myself after so many years with so many children. I would like to be inspired. I would like to be creating more content. I would like to have like a next purpose, but I don't have that now. And I don't know how long it's going to take. And if I try to work hard at figuring that out, it would just set me back.
Have you read The Great CEO Thing from Matt McCurry? The book, The Great CEO Thing from Matt McCurry. Right? So he has this expression, zone of genius, like where you are a genius when you are working, like you find the zone of genius and you try to make most of time there.
Yeah. The way I describe it is, I was in a business, and I had a partner, and my partner just wanted me to work in my zones of stupidity, like implementing projects and like all these exhausting things. And I had no energy left to create content. I didn't want to. And I just like was blocked from working in my own zone of genius. And, it's like an executive, even on stage at talk, I said like any VP of sales is not going to be great at all the aspects of that job, right? Maybe there's 10 of them, and between like call coaching, email coaching, hiring, firing, setting quotas, setting territories, technology, proposals, demos, blah, blah, blah. There's some portion of those or maybe they were great 5 years ago, and to have the courage and confidence to say, look, these are the things I'm great at. These are the things I'm not going to be great at, and I need help there. Right? It's going to be better for the team if we get someone else to focus on these areas. Is smart, and CEOs need to do that too. It's just hard, especially as a CEO, because you kind of feel like the buck stops with me. I got to do it all, and you don't. So I think the more you can identify even what your zone of genius is, I would say unique genius. A lot of people aren't sure. But people around you, people who've worked with you can give you feedback. But one sign is, what do I like to do? What do I know that I'm good at? And what do I like to do? And then there's often stuff that I need to do that other people can't. And then this other bucket of what should I do? That's the bucket to get rid of. So usually, what am I great at? What do I like to do? What do I need to do? And everything else, get rid of it or get someone else do it as much as possible.
When we are talking about like working smart and the zone of genius, and we go back to creating a sales team. So I would like to hear a little bit about a fast growing company. So when we have like to hire a lot of people and we need to scale this team and develop them and make them have a great ramp up, I think it's the term.
I believe there are two parts of this question. Like one is how to hire fast with the best quality you can, and two is how to develop the people that you already have. Like SDR becomes a closer become a manager, and things like that. When you are growing really fast and you don't have time to do things with the best possible way.
Yeah. Well, I think it does help if you're hiring lots of people. At least one sense, it's to do your best to do it in classes, right? Groups. So each month you might have a group of people starting at the same time. So rather than everyone starting when they get hired right away, like, okay, one person today and one person in 4 days and 2 people next week, every, whether it's a couple of weeks or month, have a group together that are kind of, they can get to know each other. They can be trained together. There's a lot more kind of, like an orchestra, together that way. That's one way. On the hiring people and doing it, good people, doing it quickly, it's not really my expertise there. But I would say that there's so many companies. It's like kind of knowing your culture. How can you kind of put that out there in a way that possible recruits can see that and feel like, oh, is this a good fit or not a good fit? Right? If you are a culture that values kind of hard work, say that. If you're a culture that is more flexible and that's not a top value, say that. You're trying to make it as easy as possible for the right people to kind of feel your vibe and say, yeah, that feels like a good fit or not. And for the people who aren't a good fit to be turned off.
So it's really good to see this.
Like video is a good way for that. Like if the founder or someone does a video, right, so they can see someone speaking about it. That's another good way to kind of get that, the vibe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a strategy at V4 that we call Scout. It's like a course to train salespersons, and it's really working because we have like almost, I think it's 30% or more of our sales team, which have something around 80 people right now. They came from the Scout course. So I think it's like the in-between of our strategy here. So we have to hire people and then make a group to train them together. We are doing this with a course which is called Scout, and I really think it works. I think it's a good way to strategize the development of a team, of a sales team.
Yeah. The other thing is you can create more jobs. If you can afford to do this, create more jobs, whether they're interns or like a junior level. So you can hire people who may not fit like a sales job or an SDR job into like a training, like a
trainee,
like development job.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's for salespeople, like the SDR job is like a training job for AE, but you can also have SDR kind of researchers or, even other jobs in the company that you can kind of bring in maybe people who have potential but not experience.
And how to think about promoting people in this kind of environment? Like, how fast should you promote an SDR and account executive for a management job inside sales?
Yeah. Well, the SDR answer is easier because that's more standard. Or usually, if you have a good SDR, I mean, they're going to want to be promoted within, a few months, 3 or 4 months, right? It's like this challenge because the best SDRs are going to be the ones who get bored the fastest with the job. But how often do you promote them? It depends on how fast the company is growing. But if it's a very fast growing company, it might be as soon as, 6 or 8 months. If it's slower growing, maybe 18, a year and a half for outbound prospecting. So again, a common career path is people get hired in to do inbound lead response. They get promoted to do outbound prospecting. If people are going to be in that job for a while, it's more common to break it into kind of micro promotions. So maybe every 3 to 6 months, they go from SDR1 to SDR2, and then SDR2 to SDR3. And you can create variety in there, like team lead. You can kind of create more types of jobs to create some upward movement. So it's not like big chunks every year or two. It's kind of some more smaller chunks. Salespeople, it's impossible to answer because, again, there's so many types of salespeople and jobs and, even within a company, depending how fast you're going, B2B, B2C. But if you feel like there's people in there and they want more progression, you can always look at these kind of micro promotions. You can always look at things like team leads or putting on like side projects where they can take ownership of projects, or it could be simple like learning about a certain vertical or internal. If people want more responsibility, there's ways to offer that to them without giving them like a promotion. I mean, people, they want to make money, but they also want to learn, feel like they're advancing professionally. And it's like boredom is challenging in a job because people, if they get bored, they're like, oh, I should probably try to leave and look for something more interesting.
Yeah, we can go back to the information issue that we have today. So people are bombarded, I guess, with a lot of information. So they become
all these exciting looking things.
Yeah,
right?
new things, new ways, new careers. But you said like the guy comes in a inbound environment. So he is in SDR, for example, and then he goes to a BDR career. Is it like the way you see it? It's like SDR and BDR inbound and then outbound, or it's like a Y type of career. So you can choose to go on an inbound path, or you go to the outbound.
Yeah. Well, if you're a company that doesn't have inbound leads, obviously you don't have that job, and people just start outbound. And you can always hire people right into outbound. But I think it just helps with the training when you have especially less experienced people. Start them, if you can, start them in an inbound job because they learn a lot there, then promote them to outbound. So usually if you're in inbound, every sales job can be a Y, where no matter if you're in I don't use the term SDR for inbound because there's so many confusing, it's like an inbound lead response or inbound SDR. Some people can go from there to outbound. Some people might realize, you know what, sales not for me. Maybe I want to go to product or marketing or partnerships. But if they've spent a bunch of months in inbound lead response, they're going to be and you know that they're a good person, they're going to be a great employee someplace. So, because they've been talking to customers from most. So, but most tend to then to go to outbound. And then from outbound, again, maybe people decide they don't want to go into sales, but again, most will. Some might want to go into customer success or account management. Or the thing is, they've been talking to customers. They've been doing outbound prospecting. They've got some incredibly valuable skills. And if they've been there for 6 to 14 months, you kind of know them. You know that they're good at. You'll know if they should stay at the company or not. So no matter where they go, they're an amazing source of these jobs are amazing source of talent for sales and other parts of the company for the people who stay there and succeed.
Got it. And just to wrap it up, I guess I have a question that is talking a little bit about ABM. So the question is like that: what is
anti-ballistic missiles? Okay.
Yeah, account-based marketing for the people that are listening.
I'm already asleep.
Yeah. But the question is like, what is the best ABM strategy that you have seen?
Well, it's hard to say because I think that ABM, to really do it, it takes so many resources, people, and work and technology. And hasn't been the side that I've been in. It's a lot of like hands-on experience to see who's actually made it work. I think ABM, you have to say, look, okay, here's the ABM is this kind of idea. Let's pick one part of it to really make it work well. So if we're doing ABM for a small number of like large target accounts, start there. Which that include account-based marketing might mean, okay, because it can take a lot of hands-on coordination between salespeople, like executives, events, marketing people, online ads, offline events. And so that might be one place to start. Or another place might be, all right, we have all these like small businesses we're targeting. So ABM in that case might mean we're going to do sort of like certain kinds of ads and integrate with our CRM and, it's picking a place to begin, because I think people, it's a term that gets thrown out, but people don't realize like there can be so much behind that's just impossible to do all at once. So again, I can't think of one this moment. There is a case study in the Hipercrescimento book on ABM from John Miller, he was the guy who started a company called Marketo. I'm blanking, right? Yeah. And then he started a company called Engagio. Engagio is an ABM platform. They sold to Demandbase, I believe. But he said in there, he kind of laid out a good way to say, if there's 4 tiers, right? You kind of categorize your customers. And in this case, the example he used was there'd be like this, like 5 strategic targets at the top, right? And you spend, that's just like super high handhold in there. And the next group is, several, maybe 15 or 20 companies grouped by a few verticals, right? And it gets a bit less service, but still very high touch. And the next group, mid-market, so he kind of laid it out. So I think that's where I would start is, okay, what are your customer segments, and pick one to really start with, because it's just more work than people realize. That's my only advice got on ABM.
I have a last question for me that is about compensation for salespeople. Like, there's a lot of discussion about should you pay a commission? Should be all just the salary without any kind of commissions? How do you see that for salespeople?
There's a lot of these questions in life, which we're now heading towards these world of spectrums, right? There's so many ways to do everything. Again, that's why I like the example of genders. What gender should I be? Well, no one can tell you that, right? How should we compensate our salespeople? Well, there are a lot of models that have worked, like commission only has worked, salary plus everything has worked for someone. So I think if you start with this, looking at, all right, what are some companies that are similar to me? Like, what have they done that has worked or not worked, right? If I'm a retail store, like, what have other retail stores done? And again, if I'm more kind of high volume, cheaper versus high end luxury, computers versus clothes, but go talk to do some research on companies like you. What did they try? What did they like or not like? And then say, all right, let's start something. So my advice is, if you're going to change comp plans, try to involve the salespeople in that conversation, or whoever's the team is. Say, look, we need to change the comp plan. I want your advice, your input. Let's do this together. Let's workshop it. And we'll try this for 2 months or 3 months, and then we'll stay in touch. And after that, if it's worked, we'll kind of make it permanent. And if not, we'll have to just do another version to kind of try again. People get very sensitive about money. And it's better to be in communication with them and not just do a new plan and drop it on them. And again, it's because it's finding the right comp plan for that team for this year is something that I believe will work better if you involve them in it and you have like a testing period that we all know about to try to say, we want to get the best comp plan that works for everybody. If we take a guess at it, it's probably not going to work because either it'll be too, like the quote, for example, the quotas might be too low and you're going to be really mad because once you make too much money, we're going to jack up the quotas. And maybe the quotas are too high and you get really mad because you're going to miss them. But if we kind of have like a testing period with maybe it's the same quotas, different, whatever we're changing, let's learn together and we'll do this together. I think to me, that's the best way to do it when you can.
The compensation model that we had at before was like a base salary and commission. It's like pretty standard, I guess. And we started to switching it to only the salary with no commission, the highest salary as possible. And we gave people the option to opt in, like what do you prefer? Do you prefer commission or do you prefer a fixed salary, for example? And I guess like 100% of them right now are on the fixed salary, and we are trying to implement something that we discussed on earlier episode, that we are going to have the fixed budget, the fixed salary for them, and quarterly bonuses. So if he surpasses the quota, so he is going to have something around
keep trying it because I've heard lots of stories about companies making fixed salaries for sales and no commission work. And for some companies that might, and for others, it would be a disaster. So it's about kind of knowing for your company, your culture, your rate of growth, your customers, what's going to work for you, and realizing, there's going to be it's an evolution. So they're always going to be changing. So to me, it creates a lot more trust and better relationships with the salespeople when they're involved in that in some way. And it's not, doesn't come out as a surprise.
And this idea of test the new, I forgot how to say the word.
Comp plan?
To test the new comp plan with just a few salespeople for 2-3 months, and then decide if you roll out it for the whole company. Like after you say that, it's obvious. Try it with a few people. But I have never thought about that because in my mind is always, hey, it's a comp. I can't pay different people for do the same thing in different ways, but I can. If we speak with them, they understand, they volunteer maybe, but it's possible.
And even that may not work for lots of companies. Like if you sell really big projects and they take 12 months to close, so it's like, there's so much of life. Like we want answers. Like I just want the answer, right? Well, if it doesn't, have more confidence in your ability to come up with good ideas and try them out. That's really what I think most people should internalize. Is you have great ideas, your business better than other people. Like get advice from people, but then you come up with something that you feel like is going to work and try it and stay in touch with your team and have develop more confidence in your ability to come up with ideas and do them.
That's it. Thank you so much, Aeron. I guess it was a great episode. How can people search for you? Where are you producing content right now?
I mean, the best place really is our Receita Previsível website. I do have a newsletter in English. It's Fresh Air on Substack. I think I'm going to have that. We're working to get that translated.
Okay.
And I'm on Instagram, AaronRoss383. It's mostly like kid pictures and fun stuff. So, but I think
I follow Instagram is really popular here for business.
The best place,
Great.
Tiago Nico is like, I only have 5,000 followers. So I post like silly stuff. Yep, that's me. So,
That's great. So, thank you so much. E pra galera que tá nos ouvindo aí, mais um episódio. Obrigado pra você que tá assistindo aí no YouTube. Deixe seu comentário. Fala aí pra gente se você gostou, se gerou alguns insights pra você. E é isso aí. E o nome do episódio? Como é que a gente vai fazer? Vamos perguntar pra ele? O que ele acha?
Could you suggest a name for this episode? For the episode of the podcast?
We make every episode of ROI Hunters, we make the name on the end of the episode. What do you think would be a great title for this resume?
Again, I kind of think of my came up with this growing sales in the world of chaos. I don't know.
Growing sales in a world of chaos.
Or in a chaotic world.
In a chaotic world. Yeah, I think
Navigating.
Great. Yeah.
That's a good name.
Okay. Maybe translated. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Siga o ROI Hunters no youtube.com/ROI Hunters e no Instagram pelo @ROI Hunter Oficial e faça parte do nosso grupo do Telegram com conteúdos exclusivos.